Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With us today, we have Chris Rossini, co-host. Thank you, Chris, for being with us today.
Great to be with you, Dr. Paul.
Well, good. Guess what we're going to talk about today? Gold. Gold fingers and all that kind of stuff. But it's in the news. It happens to be in the news. A lot of people that don't think much about gold here in quite a few years and probably never think too much about it because it's always too expensive. But it's catching the attention of a lot of people, not only the average investor in our country, but around worldwide. The central banks are very much involved, and they may well be the instrument that is pushing the gold price up. $4,000. It's still baffling, although it was predictable. It doesn't surprise me that it happened, but it still surprises me that they let it go so far. So it's still shocking, I would say. So that's what we're dealing with, and there's a lot of people worried about it. And of course, a lot of people right now are worrying about how do you survive this, because the government tells us that the inflation is sort of mellow now. It's not doing so much, and we're getting bad. There was one report that the inflation has settled down, a Michigan report. And I think it's all wishful thinking on their part, because I think the inflation is, they think inflation is when the price of oil will come back and go up. And the inflation is here, the oil prices are going up, that sort of thing. Inflation is when the government prints too much money, when the Congress spends too much money, when the people demand the Congress spend too much money, and we go into too many wars, all that sort. That's what does it. And so if those conditions exist, the inflation is there. They're not going to get rid of the inflation. And the other fellows that they have is when you stop, even if you stop a rate of printing money, it doesn't stop anything, because the money they printed 2 years ago is still filtering through the system, pushing prices up. The inflation of the 70s, when houses were like average of $30,000 and then they went up to $130,000, well, they never go back to $30,000. So once inflation is there, it's a permanent thing, and people are starting to recognize that the problems we face now is permanent, it's worldwide, it's bigger than ever, and that's one of the reasons why we like to partner with Birch Gold, because that's their business, is trying to help people protect against these many, many problems that we face. Too much money, too much printed money, and too many people starting to suffer from it. So that is the reason, and Birch Gold has suggestions to make on the best place to put investments, and they will send you some material if you like it. So you have to ask for it, and it doesn't cost you. So if you look at the telephone number on the screen, and that it is, if you text Ron at 989898, they will send you some material talking about how you handle regular stocks versus, bullion, and how to best do that with a consideration of following the rules the best one can, with the government placing it on gold, because governments are ruthless. And I don't remember the date, but I know the date definitely. It was in 1933 when Roosevelt took over, who said, I believe in a gold standard. I believe it's staying out of war. Well, the first thing he did was confiscate the gold. So governments are very important, and it makes it more difficult, and that's what's happening right now. But there's never been anything quite like it is now. It's always a worldwide event when gold takes a major jump. But this one is getting the attention of a lot of people because nobody sees an easy way out. The answer is easy, but nobody wants to do it. All you have to do is cut spending. That will help a whole lot. Then the government wouldn't have any excuse for printing money. And of course, that's so old-fashioned. You mean that's sort of like going back to the Constitution? Oh, we didn't like that. It was too restrictive. So we don't do that anymore. Anyway, the problems are here. And if you're interested in visiting with somebody from Birch Gold about what you might do to help protect yourself, they just text Ron 989898. And we do have Chris with us today, our co-host, and he is prepared to explain all of this to us, and with his fingers crossed. No, he's good. He understands it, and he's been working with me for a good many years. So I'm delighted that he's working, regularly now, with our Liberty Report. So, Chris, what do you have on your mind about $4,000 gold? Did that get your attention?
Oh, yeah, Dr. Paul, we are living in a golden age for sure. I mean, we all remember the campaign of President Trump. It was a lot of dancing, a lot of fun, and we were promised a golden age, new golden age for America. Unfortunately, it was a mirage. Because we're getting a golden age, but not the one that was advertised. We're at 4,000 gold. We were supposed to have much less government corruption. They were going to go after the deep state, all that, investigate the Fed, go to Fort Knox, end the wars. It was a mirage. We've got the exact opposite on all fronts. Big, beautiful bankruptcy bills, wars and threats of wars every single day you wake up. There's, what are we going after Venezuela next? I mean, and inflation. So we have a golden age. People are running into gold to protect themselves from Trump's policies. What a turnaround that you now have to go to a safe haven, because that's why people pile into gold, because your confidence in the government and in its policies they're going to make things worse, and they're going to continue to destroy the dollar. And that's exactly what President Trump wants. He has been pushing for lower interest rates, driving Fed pal crazy. And it looks like we're going to get it, which means we're going to get even higher prices, more inflation. So the golden age is $4,000 gold today. Who knows what it'll be in the future? And running away from Trump's policies in order to protect yourself.
People will say to me and to others, they say, you guys that are worried, you Austrian economists, always worrying about what's going to happen. And you've been doing that for a long time. They were doing this all the way back to the Depression, especially at end of World War II, when they were, doctoring up the dollar, and then there was a Bretton Woods agreement that we would back the dollar, and the world would accept it as a reserve currency. Now that was a big deal for the United States, because the United States really benefited from that. And yet, right now, it's being challenged, and some people think that the days are numbered, and that means that the dollar will lose its stature. Now, some people think that the end of a currency is like when their currency is ended in Venezuela or Zimbabwe. No, it doesn't have to end like that. The pound, British pound, ended its dominance, but there's still a pound. It's just defined differently and managed differently. But after World War II, there were several issues that came together that served the benefit of the United States and the dollar. The first one was that we were spared the tremendous, destruction of the war, and it was costly and all those things, but nothing like what the other countries of Europe and the East and Japan, suffered from this. So we were spared that. But also, our country has always been blessed with natural resources. We still have it. Sometimes we mess things up by over-regulating and making things scarce when they shouldn't be. So, but the natural resources are there, and that helped to build the stature of the dollar. And if we continue to do what we've done over the years, is to manipulate the currencies, and we have been continuing, we've gone too far. That's why the people are starting to rebel against the dollar. And this means that it has to destroy or undermine the currency. And it doesn't happen easily. Sir, it depends on what country it is and how fast they're doing it. But when a country like the United States has it and has all those benefits built in, how do you make a super wealthy country that has been spared some of the terrible problems of the world? How do you undermine that? Well, believing that it's a sacred currency, it'll last forever, and we can keep printing it, and eventually it gets caught up to us. So that was the reason. Although Roosevelt didn't allow the ownership of gold in this country from 1934, 33, all the way up to 1971. In 1971, we had to declare we were technically bankrupt because we quit turning in gold for dollars of foreigners. So there was a token link to gold then. So then we refused. So that was a big date because that's when the dollar became totally fiat. And the pretense was that gold was still $35 an ounce. And just think of what's happened since then. So we do not have a stable currency, and we continue that way. Our living standards have already changed, and they will continue to change until we buckle down and get the world convinced that the dollar is a sound currency. Right now, there are others that are using gold, and of course, the many countries that have gotten together are using gold. We are not honoring gold like we did at one time. So the difficulty in protecting a dollar and protecting our wealth, it becomes, hard to do. And I believe that it's necessary for us to continue the effort, because I don't believe, after my, experience in Congress, it's not going to happen for Congress. Congress, it's not going to happen. We're not going to get 10 or 15 people leading the charge, or 51% to vote and wise up, cut the spending, balance the budget, protect and have a gold standard. It's not going to happen. And the only thing they can do is manipulate more interest rates, pretending they can regulate the economy and print more paper money, which means more inflation. So that's what we have to prepare for. But the Liberty Report and our efforts are designed to tell people, yes, there's trouble. The trouble is going to end, hopefully not in a calamity unless we do something, but we ought to warn people enough so they can get prepared, and we ought to have something to replace what is coming, because certainly the Marxists are sitting there waiting. Oh, more chaos. We love chaos, because that's when we can do it. And now we have people, just outwardly declaring themselves communists and socialists and getting elected. So the struggle is there, but I'm still optimistic that more people are listening to the message of liberty, and the reason why we have to think seriously about a sound monetary system.
That's right, Dr. Paul. We really can have a golden age. We're not going to have it under Trump, unfortunately, but the way to do it is, what is the biggest albatross on our backs? It's the U.S. government, the federal government. I mean, the state and local aren't much better, but the federal is the big, they rob us like crazy. Not even for our benefit. That's the worst part about it. But President Trump, we're going to grow our way out. He says by more inflation, they're going to print more money. No, that's not how you get government off our backs. We should have entrepreneurship in this country. Get off of our backs. They're not going to do it. So inflating your way is like a drug addict or a person with an alcohol problem saying, I got a problem, but I'm going to do more drugs, drink more. And you would say, no, that's insane. You're going to overdose. You're going to kill yourself. That's what the road that President Trump has taken for our nation. We don't have this buzz of entrepreneurship. We don't have this breath of fresh air in America. Instead, we're having hundreds of billions of dollars funneled to nations that aren't our own. Dr. Paul and Daniel did a show, $31 billion to Israel just in the last 2 years alone. And the only thing you see is this AI. They're creating this massive bubble. And I like AI. I use it every day. But what I use it for and what the government wants to use it for are not the same things. They want to surveil every one of us with digital IDs and social credit score. That's why they're building. They're not building it so I could find answers to questions, but that's where the money is being poured into. And America is suffering because what we get is name changes. The Gulf of America, the Department of War. Yesterday, he changed Columbus Day. So we're getting nothing. Our money is just flowing out of this country, and America is actually getting worse under President Trump.
You know, there's another major problem that has been around, has been built because it was doing exactly what Chris is advising they shouldn't have done, and that is manipulate and regulate farming, agricultural. And even the big corporations that provide, you know, the fertilizers, and the corporations that buy the food, it's been monopolized and manipulated. But now the headline today read in Zero Hedge, U.S. farmers are facing the worst economic downturn in at least 50 years. And believe me, when the food shortages get much worse, they're already there, and they're very expensive, and people have had to change their shopping habits because of that. This, interestingly enough, has been really aggravated with all the bad policies and the subsidies that farming has gotten. The issue of tariffs is a major issue right now because of tariffs being placed, on China and other people. The retaliation said the Chinese have put a tariff on soybeans. China was our biggest customer for soybeans, and now the farmers are going broke. They can't sell their soybeans. And everybody, and even the people who were pretend free market people, they're going along with this nonsense. So they say, "Oh no, you have to have tariffs. It's working. Just think how wonderful it is." And then they come up with all the reports that they have on things that have improved. But it's a misinformation to actually believe things are getting better. But they will here and there. But as long as the spending continues and the debt rises and the Fed is there, and the biggest argument ever is, what should the interest rate be? And there's a knockdown, drag-out fight with the president and the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board. They pretend they know what the interest ought to be. That's the nonsense of it all. And then they wonder why this is going on. And then they come up and they have these wonderful stories. This is the best thing ever. Chris sort of poked fun at, the golden age. Some of them still say the golden age. There's always a report that sounds just wonderful. Just like over the weekend, it was announced the peace is here, and the fighting in the Middle East and with the Palestinians and Israel has essentially ended. And there's been a celebration, and I could understand it because I remember very clearly what the celebrations were like in 1945 when Japan surrendered. So there is excitement, but what my thoughts are, is it going to work? Can Donald Trump pull that off? And I'm sure he's well-meaning. He'd love to have peace break out and get credit for that. But I'll tell you what, I don't think that people should get lax and say, boy, this looks good. I guess that's settled. Foreign policy, Daniel McAdams, Ron Paul can't make fun of the $30 billion we just sent to Israel. Because the war is over and things are going to be a lot better. So anyway, we have a long way to go. And I just think that this issue of the farmers is a big deal. And it's probably, I just have so much confidence in liberty. If you have free market farming and no interference with inflationism or regulations or tariffs, the farmers would do better. But guess what the farmers need and want right now? They need bailed out again. So that's not very encouraging. Chris?
Right, Dr. Paul. Very good. I will finish up with my last thought. I wanted to address, something that I just see on a daily basis. And there's President Trump has for sure suffered in his, approval ratings, and deservedly so. And we criticize him not because we want to, but we have to. I wish it was differently. Same thing with Biden, Obama, whoever is in there. We have to talk about their policies, period. Not the personalities, not if we like them or not. And if President Trump were to change today, we will praise him for the rest of the 4 years. Obviously, that's a long shot. But that's the way it works with us. We are all about the policy, and we have principles that those policies have to measure up against. And he's not doing a good job, and we're not the only ones. You know, you don't have to be a libertarian. He has lost a lot of support. But he also still has a decent amount of support out of fear. There are people who are afraid. They're like, well, what about, look at the Democrats. What if they were there? And it's understandable, you know, but you can't just be quiet when President Trump does the wrong things, because then he'll just do it without any pressure on him. You know, nobody's going to stop him. No, he has no public pressure. So you have to speak out, even if you're afraid of the Democrats or your friends calling you a Democrat or whatever the heck it is. And the more bad policies that Trump implements, he's going to usher in the Democrats. You know, today, the Democrats can run as an anti-war party. Imagine that he ran as the peace president, and they could run against him as the anti-war party. Now, it would be a lie. They're not an anti-war party any more than the Republicans, but it doesn't matter. It would get the votes. They could run as an anti-corporatist. You know, he's taking positions in corporations, the government. This is Mussolini stuff. They could run against all that. And so it's ushering in the left. If Trump just can go with a free hand because his supporters are so scared of the Democrats, you have to criticize him in order to just at least put pressure on him, so he at least thinks twice that, hey, at least, you know, my supporters don't like this. I won't be able to get away with it, so I won't do it. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Wonderful. Good statement there. You know, I want to close with a theoretical idea, and it's just I wanted to get a little bit away of $4,000 gold and this sort of thing. What is happening here? I think the market is looking at this, and this is probably more like a daydream for me. The market tends to, you know, when a currency collapses, they find something artificial. And there's been 20 things that have been used temporarily for money because it was something of substance, and but it wasn't lasting, because the things that have lasted for hundreds, if not thousands of years, has been gold and silver. They're at top of the list. But you know what I see has happened, though, as they were printing more money, counterfeiting more money, and the market always knows what happens. Not right away, not the next day, but eventually, as the money circulates, the price goes up, which means it isn't so much the price is going up as the dollar is losing its value. It's being devalued. So this has been going on. You know, it was started with the gold in 1933, and then it was taken off being officially a currency in 1971. No longer could the foreigners come and put down their $35, and because the dollar, but it was canceled by Nixon, mainly because the theory is they, at the end of a currency like this, there's a temptation to retain enough to restart it up with gold. We have the most gold of any country, but still there's a lot of countries that have a lot of dollars, and so there's a lot of adjustment to do. The market should take care of it. But you know, you think, what's going to happen? Gold adjusted since that time that the government, you know, quit guaranteeing anything, $4,000, and a lot of people are talking about $5,000. If this continues and they're able to keep it together without a total collapse, there's no reason, you know, that gold couldn't easily double and get up around 10,000. But you say, well, no, he can't do that. It went up and doubled, tripled, and quadrupled when it was $30, $40, $50. So no, it could happen, but I believe it could. And that's the market telling us where you have to go if you want it to be a convertible currency. But since this time, gold is so expensive at $4,000 to be used by the average person, they think about, well, use a silver ounce. Well, when I started collecting silver coins when I was delivering newspapers as a kid, looking at all the dates. Silver then, when I was saving silver, it was $1.29 an ounce, and now it has hit $50. It's going to go higher. So for it to go to $100. It seems, no, it'll quit before that. They'll wise up. But no, if you look at the statistics and doubling of the price of silver from here, it's not like, an impossible thing to happen. It's a scary thing to think about. But the thing that I want to mention that I find interesting, because, the government ruined the use of gold as a currency and also silver now is out of our coinage. But and silver, even silver, if it goes to $100, it's going to be difficult for the average person whose dollar is being devalued on a daily basis. But my idea is, what's going to happen? I think I see hints of it. People are starting to mint copper, but that's only a penny, it's little. But we were even able to destroy that because it was not that many decades ago where we couldn't even afford to have a copper penny. So we have this silly thing, made out of fake copper and made it look like it, but it doesn't look like it. So here we have these pennies. So we need another currency to use it to try and buy small item. But if you could just slow this down or stop it, you could adjust and say, why don't we have copper pennies? There are copper coins right now being minted for fun and maybe serious, because I think an ounce of copper has to be a couple dollars. And you say, yeah, that's about the right amount. It's a little higher than a penny. It used to be, but this would be a super copper penny. It have that 1 ounce copper, and I'm interested in that just because I like to think about the coins. Matter of fact, the copper ounce is a pretty coin, but right now it's not. It's just sort of miscellaneous thinking about it, but in a way it could be adjusted because you can't use gold to buy a loaf of bread, and you can't use silver if it's over $100. So maybe copper will. Maybe the market will pick the copper and say, well, that'll do with a smaller one. But the problem there is our government won't stop printing the fiat money. They won't quit counterfeiting. And that's where our problem is. So we have to deal with the subject of freedom and sound money. We have to get people to understand why government should live within its means. And then you might be able to get a sound currency. But in the meantime, more and more people are going to be looking for how to just get by until those days arrive where we will have serious monetary reform. That is what we hope and pray for someday, because you can't have much honesty in an economy if you don't have honest money. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.